We all know Shang-Chi, master of Kung Fu, master of the Ten Rings, Marvel's best hand-to-hand fighter. But what about his family? In this video, I'm going to be touching on that exact topic, breaking down each and every relevant family member to Shang. So I don't have to spam the video with different issues and whatnot, here are the three main series I'm going to be talking about. Shang-Chi's 2020 run all the way up to his current Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings. And another thing I want to touch on is I'm going to be breaking down this video per individual. So there might be events that happen in the future or the past that hasn't happened yet for a certain character. Once this video ends, you'll see the whole picture. All that out of the way, let's finally start this video by going all the way back to Qing Dynasty China. With it comes the first family member we're going to be talking about, Shang-Chi's father. Practically the foundation for everything we're going to be talking about hence on forth. And his name is Zhang. I'm not really good with Mandarin. You'll see his name. We end up finding out Shang-Chi's dad is the founder of the Five Weapons Society and has been practically its supreme commander for eons at this point. Again, eons worth of time being the leader of the Five Weapons Society. This makes Shang one of the most skilled combatants in all of Marvel. And as you'll end up learning as this video goes on, Shang-Chi is the perfect culmination of what his father wanted his society to be. To solidify the purpose of the Five Weapons Society, originally it was just to protect China against invaders, etc, etc, but over time things changed. After having to deal with multiple Westerners trying to take over his mainland. Oh, not just Westerners, mind you. Dormammu trying to take over ancient China. Shang's dad decided to not only absorb his brother's power, but all the masters of the Five Weapons Society, to not only prolong his life, making him pseudo-immortal, but also increasing his combat skill. Dolo, Shang's dad was able to push back the invasion of Dormammu. After realizing how much of a risk his society is, he decided to branch out beyond just China's borders, establishing multiple different houses in different countries. The House of the Deadly Hand stays in China, the House of the Deadly Staff goes to England, the House of the Hammer in Russia, and the House of the Deadly Dagger in Japan. Outside of that, without spoiling specific plot points for other family members, the next time we see Shang's dad is when he's trying to help him break out of prison. Or more specifically, Shang-Chi's mental capabilities are so potent it reached his dad in the afterlife practically to ask for help. What's he do? He uses his knowledge of the realm, he uses his knowledge of combat to show Shang-Chi a potential future. This future pertaining to things that Shang in his lifetime could not attain. The Ten Rings, so he uses his son as a conduit to become, as we know, the master of them. No, this is pretty much the end of Shang's character arc. I'm gonna be touching on certain other aspects when I bring up Shang's other siblings, but this is pretty much the end. He was trying to guide Shang to be a better version of himself, which he successfully does. He's proud of his son. He outright made the Five Weapons Society a better version of what he ever could be. And again, he is the foundation of it, and he's the reason Shang-Chi is the type of individual he is now. All the credit that you can acclaim to Shang, you have to give it to his father. He's the one that pushed him there, be it for better or worse. He is the reason. Like again, Shang is who he is. With Shang's dad out the way, we can talk about his first sibling and his only full-blood sibling, Sister Hammer. First we see of her is her challenging the previous ruler of the Way of the Staff. As her name implies, you can bet money she got that fucking title. Actually, we end up learning that she actually was very close to Shang in their childhood, but a certain tragic event forced them to split apart. After finding out their father's attempt to manipulate and control the undead, things took a drastic turn. Ops pulls up, immediately yokes up his son, and is ready to honestly murk him off. Yihua was not about to watch the person she loved the most get murked off, so she struck out against her father, obviously receiving some backlash. That specific event caused a fracture between the two. Despite it being a moment of love, compassion for one another, trying to save and protect one another, this ends up completely backfiring and ends up getting spinned into something you could argue as the opposite. After some certain events transpire, Shang-Chi ends up reuniting with his sister. Despite everything that happened, all the years of separation, at deep down, at the most fundamental level, they still love each other. There's a reason I say at the fundamental level, because Xihua poisons her brother. Honestly, because she feels like she was abandoned and Shang didn't really try to do anything to reunite with her throughout, 20 plus years. This poison honestly should have murked Shang off, but his uncle intervenes, granting Shang some higher level regeneration, to be honest. Actually, Shang had to beat up some zombies. Then eventually he reunites with his sister. Things are uneasy, emotions are flaring, but Shang-Chi, all he wants to do is rekindle his relationship. Obviously, that'll start throwing hands. Shang's not alone here. He's accompanied by 2 other siblings that I'm going to be touching on later in this video. But eventually, he gets to his sister. Fortunately, gets cut off yet again before he can establish any sort of foundation to build their relationship. Though he has to let one sibling escape, he risks his life to save his others. Don't get me wrong, Xihua ends up coming around eventually. Shang-Chi is at the precipice of death. Things aren't looking really well for him as the Supreme Commander. He believes he has the true upper hand on Shang in this moment, but his mental and physical fortitude is unmatched. Through a show of resilience, he can finally show his sister that, hey, I'm not here to ruin your life. I'm here to, again, recreate everything that we missed throughout the 2+ decades of us not interacting. At the end, all Shang wants to do is rebuild his family and his society. These words don't start ringing true to her until they get a vision of the past, where their father in this past event dominates them once again, showing despite all the countless years, they are still the same siblings from before. Shang-Chi has grown. He is matured. He is a different person than he was when he's a child. And Xihua finally understands that this is her older brother. At the end of everything, he is willing to risk his life to protect her. And she finally realizes that. For family tradition, they have to fight one last time because the best way to show one's emotion is through their fists. This moment here is what solidifies it for her. A bullet is fired, a killing shot even, but Shang-Chi stops it. Why? Why? Because he loves her. We don't see Xihua again until much later on in the Ten Rings tournament. Shang is fighting his longtime rival Cat, who ends up getting corrupted by the Great Devourer, and this honestly puts Shang on the back foot. In base, Cat was already a rival to Shang, but with his amp, he's outright dominating him. Well, at least until someone comes to save his life. Yes, it's his sister, and he lets her know that, hey, I feared for you. I know what the Ten Rings could do and how corruptive of a force they are. So I joined this tournament to protect you, my brother. She easily could have fought Shang here to claim the rings for herself, but instead she was merely just trying to get rid of his obstacles. After that one moment, she realizes that Shang is the rightful ruler of the Weapon Society. He is the peak of what she's always wanted in life. Though Shang knows that he doesn't need her help now, she will always be out there, waiting for the moment where Shang truly will need her, and she can finally repay his gratitude. Xihua and Shang-Chi's relationship is some of the most potent dynamics in all of Marvel, and it's been portrayed perfectly in just 3 series? Unmatched. Like I said in the beginning, this is about Shang-Chi's entire family, and though Xihua is one sibling, Shang has multiple others. The next one we're going to talk about is May, otherwise known as Sister Dagger. So when it comes to Esme, along with another sibling, again, we're going to be talking about later, their first appearance comes as opposition to Shang. And honestly, quite swiftly, he beats them down. And so much so, they're just like, hey, brother, like, it's us, brother. Take it easy. And honestly, thanks to this interaction, this is how Shang-Chi finds out he's a part of a whole big society. When it comes to the more earlier segments of the 3 series, Esme is more delegated to a side character with quick banter moments. Don't get me wrong though, this is the start of the foundation of the whole little sister vibe for Shang. And honestly, when it comes to the later aspects of the comics, as you'll see, Esme is kind of hella pivotal. At least in terms of right now, she just sees Shang not like a brother, like, hey, I love you so much type thing, more of like a superior being like, hey, your father's like first child type shit. It's not more until the midsection where Esme gets more foundation and more uniqueness in terms of her character, really pushing that younger sister vibe to Shang. Honestly, banter queen, up there with Spider-Man, I can't lie to you. And speaking of Spider-Man, this ends up being one of her first interactions with a true superhero. Eventually things go wrong, Spider-Man goes berserk. So Shang and Esme have to work together in order to put down an enraged, amped Spider-Man. Which they do, honestly, quite handedly. But things don't end off quite as well. The reason being is because Shang-Chi hides his family matters from his friends as superhero peers. So when it comes to his sister wanting, like, I wouldn't say validation, but just like acknowledgement on the fact that, hey, I am your sister, I am your family, like, you need to let these people know, like, what you're doing right now. And honestly, those words ring true, and Shang's like, you're right, Spider-Man, I am the leader of the 5 Weapon Society, brother, like, I'm him now. He ends up tagging along on a specific mission against Wolverine, but I'm not going to touch on this yet because it pertains to yet another sibling. Now when it comes to Esme, I'm going to put her character breakdown on hold. The reason being is because I need to talk about yet another sibling that's talked about that further develops not only his story but hers as well. That being Shang's stepbrother, and that being Takeshi, otherwise known as Brother Saber. And outside of Shihua has probably the most pivotal character dynamics when it comes to interacting with Shang. Though similar to Esme when it came to the earlier bits of the trilogy, he's delegated more towards a side character. When we get to the volume 2 run, he gets his very own story arc, and honestly a complete, I won't say antagonistic, but yeah, I guess you could say antagonistic, opposing role to Shang-Chi. You get to see his own unique values, things he likes. He loves Lady Iron Fan. And though he respects Shang as his brother, as his supreme commander, there are some values Shang holds as a hero that he just does not follow thanks to his background. So when it came to something as simple as giving the Cosmic Cube back to Captain America, he opposed his brother and kept it hidden away from him. This instance honestly caused a rift between the Avengers, other heroes, and Shang-Chi because now they don't think he's a trustworthy individual. We see this verbatim when they decide to raid Shang's home. Things end up getting so rough that Shang ends up having to fight Thor, thanks to a power-up, but a power-up he did not know he had. This is the moment Shang finds out that his brother has been lying to him, that he's been hiding the Cosmic Cube behind his back the entire time. But when it came to making a choice between his family and his friends, his mission, his job, him being a hero, he made one. That choice being a hero, giving up his brother, and honestly stirring up quite a resentment between his other siblings. Because now, not only does his friends not trust him, his own family doesn't either. And this kind of goes back to like, damn, this isn't what Shang-Chi wanted. Again, he's trying to build a family and is reverting back on him. This is when Esme ties back into it because she confronts Shang-Chi directly. She's just like, I loved you. Like, I honestly felt like we got to a point where I could finally trust you. And the first thing you do, at least into her eyes, is betray his own family. Skipping through a couple arcs, you'll all find out the culmination at the end. Saber's in prison. He ends up getting attacked by one of these damn things. But Shang-Chi, despite all that happened, still loves his brother. So what's he do? Goes and saves him. And that's where I'm gonna cut it off at talking about Brother Saber, because there's yet another sibling we have to talk about to get the whole scheme of their family, at least in terms of the children. Somewhere out in a lake, some fishermen are doing their thing, where a monster attacks, but someone saves them. Using the power of music, literally, they are able to bind the sea creature. This is Jilan, Shang-Chi's third sister and a mutant. Due to her being a mutant is the reason Shang-Chi within this series goes into conflict with Wolverine, because after all the rumors going around, he also can't trust Shang. After calming things down and actually pushing his motives to Jilan, she finally realizes that he's not like her father. And though she has worries, she knows Shang isn't outright evil. He gives him a chance. And finally, Shang-Chi is with all his siblings again outside of Xihua. Despite just getting comfortable, there's an opposing force out there trying to coerce her on their side. Outside of that, unfortunately for Jilan, she gets kind of thrown to the side. She doesn't get much story impact post like after 2 to 3 issues of this one. Now that we're done with all the siblings, we can finally touch on a certain character within Shang-Chi's life that is just as pivotal as his father. That being his mother. Shang-Chi is getting visions of the Phantom Zone. Someone is trying to send him a mental message. After raiding the Fantastic Four and entering this base, she finds out that this person is his very own mother. Gives us a breakdown on how she used her mental powers to control the creatures of the negative zone to survive, but it's kind of messed with the brain a little bit. Despite that, when it came to Saber's betrayal and Esme leaving him, she is the one to end up consoling him. All is going well until this individual arrives, another character of Shang's family that I'm going to be touching on at the very end. Moving on with Shang's mother's lore, she is a denizen of Ta Lo, just like the movies if you watch the MCU. Despite Ta Lo being a realm of God, she finds herself being one of the few species of mortals within the realm, but despite that is a very gifted warrior. During her time in Ta Lo is where she ends up meeting Shang's father. Through their interactions, not just a friendship, but a romance brings to life. They get married, they have kids, all seems well. Till Shang's grandfather shows up, and this is where I'll stop talking about his mother, because the rest of her story pertains also to his grandfather. We're finally at Grandpappy. Everything I've talked about is finally gonna culminate into one. So one of the first things we learn about Shang's grandfather is that he has direct opposition with his father. Why? Because Shang's dad's a fucking evildoer. And at least up to this point, Shang's grandfather was a chieftain of a god. His morals were fucking absolute. But unfortunately, Shang's mother is right in the middle of a conflict. Does she go with the husband that she's loved so dearly, or does she go back with her father? These both ideals, both versions of love crash in on her at the exact same moment. And unfortunately for her, she doesn't get to make the choice, because Shang's father, Shang, gets to make the first move, attacking both of them, which is kind of diabolical. And this is when Shang walks in. A family dilemma he's too young to understand, and without context, things are even worse. And guess what? His dad takes his opportunity to force a wedge between his family. Things aren't looking too good, and the portal of Ta Lo is unfortunately still open, and Shang's mother ends up falling within it. Guess what this dude does? Shang manipulates the scenario to make it look like his grandfather is a reason his mom is dead. And when he tries to console him, Jian, I think that's his name. Jian is the grandfather's name. Chaz is like, hey, like, I can take you to Ta Lo. Like, we don't have to worry about your evil ass father. The many years of manipulation, the manipulation of that very moment gets a hold of Shang, and he attacks his grandfather, permanently scarring him. And this ties right back into current day. He's back for revenge, one could say. As strong as he is now, is just not strong enough to take him on. Eventually, the gang ends up invading Ta Lo. Shang tries to get a rematch and just to get fucking humiliated yet again. He does fight back, they get the rebuttal, all his siblings showing that this is a whole family matter. But a warrior isn't without a few tricks, and he disappears, using this opportunity to kind of forcefully manipulate Shang's mother to do his own bidding. This is where Shang and his siblings go to another distant relative. Luckily, there's not much information going, so I can just continue on. He ends up helping them with a specific location and information, yada yada. It's not too relevant. That's how they found Saber. Eventually, Xihua ends up encountering her grandfather as well, and she gets her entire hand cut off. And thanks to their psionic connection, Shang feels it too. This is what culminates all the siblings to work together. But this is also where Shang gets his premonition. Something's gonna happen to you where you get consumed by evil. Will this happen? We'll have to find out. Eventually, Shang and his siblings invade Ta Lo, where they interact with the Jade Emperor himself. But little did the Jade Emperor know that Shang's grandfather, despite being his chieftain, one of his most prime warriors, is working behind him, using a newfound power to overwhelm the Jade Emperor and take control of Ta Lo. And what does Shang's grandfather do? Try to erase his entire family heritage. Anyone related to Zhangzu needs to be eradicated. That's when Shang's dad shows him the rings, and using them, he fights his grandfather. Just for a reference, the Jade Emperor is a Sky Father, like up there with like Odin and Zeus, and Shang's grandfather outright dominated him. And in this moment, Shang is having to fight against that same individual. At first, his desires for the rings and his overall goals and wants were kind of weak. Shang didn't really know what he wanted to do. When all seemed lost, when everything was on the back foot, Shang finally felt his true purpose and outright dominates his grandfather. And before Shang-Chi could lose himself in the anger, the rage, the power, the lust for it, it was his family, everyone we've talked about so far, that brought him back. Despite the premonition noting him being evil, Shang-Chi's own ambitions, goals, and values is what ends up saving him in the long run. The fact that he's a family man is the reason he is still a hero. Shang's family is so potent to his overall character that you can't mention him being the best of this, best of that without referencing his family. They all have a certain aspect that makes him who he is as a character now. You gotta give him their respect. They deserve it.